way through a 3-Sunday series where we're exploring the wisdom of Jack Kornfield, a Buddhist writer, who poses these 3 questions. In the end, what matters most? How well did you love? How fully did you live? How deeply did you let go? Every morning is an opportunity to wake into those wondrous questions, and so we sing ourselves into community as we awaken and greet this morning that has come.
There is a lot of energy in this room, and it's not just because we're all here. It's because we're here in a community that means something to us. We're here seeing old friends. We're here seeing people we've never met before. We're here in this mix of community that is our practice ground for living a life of values, living the lives we wish to live. And so we should be excited to be here. And we welcome you. Here in this room as SSUC Edmonton, welcome. Welcome to those joining us from SSUC Saskatoon by live stream. Welcome to those of you gathering with us from wherever you are joining us. You're a part of our community, all of us together. So as we gather here as this community, we know that we are gathering to go deeper into lives that could be lived on the surface, but that we seek always more than that, a life of depth and a life of meaning. And so we gather here, and we do so by helping one another as community. That we're not alone, that we have each other to help us along the way. And that's why all are welcome in this community, regardless of who we are, where we've been, how we've done it in the past. We're all welcome. And as we're honoring ourselves as valuable people, not only in this community, but valuable in the world, valuable to humanity, we seek to sink in to this place and this time. We seek to light the candle that reminds us each and every time we gather that we are a light. We're a light for each other. And so may we, as we gather in this space, as we focus on different things in the next little while, May we focus too on this candle, and may it remind us that we are a precious light. We're a light for each other. We're a light that joins the past with the future. We do gather here and acknowledge that we gather on Treaty 6 land, home for generations to First Nations and Métis, and that we are part of a tradition to honor the land, to honor those who cohabit it with us, and to move into the future with a spirit of love, of respect, of reconciliation. And so we move into this time knowing that as lights for each other, we are sacred. Life is sacred. And all of it can be sung. Let's sing together. It's our time for all ages, which means I want to invite anyone who wants to come to the carpet, young or old, all ages, to come and find a spot. Can we sit up, please? Let's sit on your bum, okay? Great. Great, great, great. There's a little square of carpet right here. There's a chair. And here, that's right, there's still room. Hello, everyone. I want to ask you if you have ever heard of a guy named Spider-Man.
I have.
Have you? Have you heard of Spider-Man?
Yes.
Okay. What can Spider-Man do?
He can shoot webs.
Shoot webs. Yes. Climb, swing, stick to walls. Very good. Yes. All of these things are true. Spin a web. Yes. Yeah, that's totally true. Yes. Okay, now I want to talk to you about one particular thing about Spider-Man. Spider-Man has this thing called Spidey Sense. Have you ever heard of that?
Yep.
I'll tell you a little bit about Spidey Sense. Spidey Sense is something that Spider-Man can do because all his senses are like a spider's. So if the air is moving just even the littlest bit, Spider-Man can feel it. If something's happening a long, long way away and making even a little tiny noise, Spider-Man can hear it. Mm-hmm. If something's a long way away, Spider-Man can see it. And not only can Spider-Man see it, but Spider-Man sees it almost like it's in slow motion. So he knows what's coming. Even if it was a speeding train, he'd know because he could kind of see it coming slow. Spidey sense. You're wondering, what am I talking about? So, you're just totally loving it. Okay, so I want us to pretend that we're Spider-Man today. But before we do that, I want to talk about sometimes when we worry. We all worry. Do you worry? Never? You know what? Sometimes we worry. And if you are worried about, it could be anything, really, that we're worried about. It could be that we have to go do something that we've never done before. Have you ever had to do something brand new? No?
I have.
Like play a sport or a game you've never played? Yeah, of course. So sometimes that worries us because we're thinking, oh no, do I remember how to do this? What if I don't know how to play this game? Or what if I have to go to school? Or to a person's house that I've never been to? Sometimes we get worried about things like that. And grown-ups worry too. They worry about you. They worry about driving their car. They worry about how we'll do new things too. Grown-ups worry too. We all have little worries. And one way to help with worries is to quiet ourselves by turning on our spidey sense. So, we're going to practice this because the next time you're worried, we can try it. If you're worried about going somewhere new or meeting someone new or someone's coming to your house or you have to go somewhere or, I don't know, your mom and dad say, can you please reshingle the roof? Or I don't know. But you're going to be worried. And the next time you're worried, I want you to turn on your spidey sense. So we're going to practice. And here's what that means. We're going to forget about everything else except what we're doing with our senses. Do you all know what our senses are? Like what we see, what we hear, what we feel. We're going to try that for a minute. And you can choose whatever you want. You could listen. You could look around. You could smell. Let's not taste each other right now. But we could feel what's around us. And we're going to do it very quietly. So this is how, I think some of you have experienced this before in Kid Spirit. This is how we know that we're going to be quiet and we're going to do something just ourselves. So we're not going to worry about what other people are doing. We're going to just be ourselves. And sometimes we can close our eyes even and do that. So you know that when I ring something, that means our time to start that quiet, our self-time has started. And when I ring this, we're going to turn on our spidey senses, okay? We're going to do it quietly. And we're going to listen. And we're going to look. We're going to use our senses. And just see what you see and hear and feel, okay? Just take notice. Ready? Are you ready? That was really fast, wasn't it? That wasn't a long time to have our spidey sense on, but it was good. You were very good at this. Now, did any of you hear anything? Did you? Okay, did any of you see things? You did. I'm not going to ask you what right now, because that's just for you to notice. That's just for you to notice. Did any of you smell something? That one's hard.
I smelled something.
Maybe someone brought their lunch, who knows? Did any of you feel anything? Mm-hmm. Turning on your spidey sense is a great thing to do next time you're worried, because it helps you to forget about all the things that you're worried about. Even just for a little bit of time, you can forget about it, and you can not worry about that, and you can focus just on what's right here, right now. So all you spidey sense experts, will you practice that next time? No? Okay. Well, whatever.
This is an old, ancient story about staying awake. It comes to us from 3 of the 4 Gospels that are passed down to us from writings in the 1st century of the Common Era. This is the earliest of those stories found in Mark's Gospel, and it's a story that comes near the end of the life of Jesus of Nazareth, Mark chapter 14. Jesus and his followers went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took with him Peter, James, and John, and he became distressed and agonized, and he said to them, I am deeply grieved. Stay here and stay awake." And going a little further, he got down on the ground and he prayed. And after he prayed, he came back and he found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "Simon, why are you asleep? Couldn't you stay awake with me even for a single hour? Stay awake and pray that you don't come into the time of trial. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, and he said the same words. And once more, a third time, he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy, and they didn't know what to say to him. And he asked, "Are you still sleeping?" This is a story from the Jesus tradition. Once upon a time, more than 500 years before the time of Jesus, there was a privileged young man born Siddhartha Gautama who grew up knowing many comforts. In fact, his father tried to protect him from ever seeing illness or old age or deformity or poverty or even death. He'd hoped to shield his son from suffering and to keep him from seeing things as they really are. As the story goes, in time, Siddhartha saw the things his father sought to protect him from. And in his despair over the inequity of life, this young man left his family, renounced his possessions and his privilege, and joined an ascetic community seeking to find meaning and purpose. And in time, he grew disillusioned there. He thought there must be some middle way between austerity and indulgence, and he sat down under a tree to meditate for a long time. And when the time came for him to rise from under the tree, his appearance changed. There was a radiance about him. He appeared to be lit from within. And as Mark Nepo in the Book of Awakening tells the story, a monk approached him in amazement, and he said to him, "O Holy One, who are you? What are you? You must be a god." And the Buddha, not thinking himself to be anything but present, answered, "No, I'm not a god." And he kept walking. But the dazzled monk persisted, and he said, "You must be a diva." And the Buddha said, "No, not a diva." And he kept walking. And still the monk pursued him, and then he said, "You must be Brahman himself." At this point, the Buddha simply said, "No." Confused, the monk pressed him yet again. Then, "What are you? Tell me, please, what are you?" And with joy, the Buddha answered, "I am awake." This is a story from the Buddhist tradition. I celebrated a wedding yesterday. I think it was intended to be an autumn wedding on the first day of fall. And as the snow fell, I began my words to the couple as I do at every ceremony. And I said, "This is a timeless moment." What I'm trying to say to them every time, I'm trying to say that I hope that this will be time out of time for you. That time and space will disappear and you'll melt into the moment. You'll let go of all the planning and all the worries and all the wonderings and all the consciousness and self-consciousness about standing in the presence of your family and your friends. And that you won't stand outside the experience, but you'll be absorbed into this moment. You'll be present in ways that just allow you to be completely, utterly, totally here and nowhere else, without any distractions, without all those things that fracture our attention so much of the time in our lives. And there is something about those timeless moments that awakens something deeply within us. Something that is lost to us in so much of our lives. One of those timeless moments found me 2 years ago in Rwanda. It found me among these amazing beings. Our day began in a very dingy motel, in the room right next door to where Dian Fossey stayed when she came down from the mountain to town for supplies. We got up very early to be at the park gates of Volcani National Park at 7 a.m. Because each day, 80 permits are issued for visitors to spend a single hour just 60 minutes with the endangered mountain gorillas in their forest home. There are 10 gorilla families that are visited by tourists all over the world every day. But only for 60 minutes a day, only for a single hour do we humans intrude into their lives simply to observe them going about their lives. There are 10 other gorilla families that are visited only by scientists and researchers who are attempting to learn the ways of these, our ancient ancestors. With our 2 guides, Bernice and Roger, and 5 strangers, 1 from Australia and 4 from Colombia, we visit the Agasha family. There are 22 members of the family. The youngest is 6 months old. The silverback is over 30 years of age. Trackers, whose family or members of their communities were once poachers, are now helping to protect these amazing creatures, working as spotters and porters. Employment by the parks and monies being invested in their communities from tourism has shifted the paradigm over the last 30 years from poaching to preserving. At the time that their fierce defender, Dian Fossey, died, there were just over 400 of these magnificent beings on our planet. 35 years later, there are now over 900 of them. After 2.5 hours of climbing and slipping and sliding through jungle and mud and on no trail anyone has ever been on before, or probably since, We spent a mystical, magical, timeless hour in the peaceful presence of these magnificent beings. Here's a little taste of that experience.
So like this first one on the right side, it's a female. We'll be having about 5 here.
A beautiful family.
That plant is called Aurora. They eat the bark of it, but they can eat the leaves. When they're having bamboo shoots, they mix the leaves with the bamboo shoot so that they don't get diarrhea. So they mix it.
Oh, God, honey. Come on, Matthew.
It was one of those rare times in my life when time stopped. When I wasn't any place except exactly where I was. When I was so fully immersed in the moment that my mind didn't wander off to another time and another place. When the skin that usually separates me from the world became so porous that there wasn't a place where I stopped, and the jungle and the gorillas and the strangers and my beloved began. And when our guide said there'll be 5 more minutes, the last 5 minutes, just like the first 55 minutes, were timeless. Because I was outside of time. We were just immersed in the present and in being present. I wasn't living in the past or the future. And when we took our leave of these amazing beings and began our trek down the mountain through the jungle, the rains came. I hate to be wet. But for once, my attention wasn't captured by being cold or being wet or calculating how much further we had to go. The experience of timelessness persisted, and I was held in the present, in the quiet that we held with each other, in the support given to us by our porters to keep us upright on the slick terrain, even in the gift of the rain for the land. In just taking one step at a time and being fully awake to the moment we were in. Those timeless moments come to each of us differently. Sometimes they come in the depths of a conversation, when we're so fully present to the conversation that everything else slides away. Sometimes it comes for us in the pages of a story that takes us into its world so completely that ours disappears for a while. Sometimes it comes in the vigil of witnessing life moving from breath to beyond. Sometimes timelessness comes when we're alone. Sometimes it comes when we're in crowds. Sometimes it comes in the midst of beauty. Sometimes it comes in the midst of pain. But we all have moments of knowing what it is to be utterly alive and absorbed in the moment we're in. When every fiber of our being is awake to the wonder or the joy or the pain or the beauty that's around us. This summer we had another one of those timeless times. We were watching this lion hunting with her cub. We had been watching elephants when we first caught sight of her, and we were so completely absorbed by her focus, by her calculated moves and her strategic stops, her affection and her modeling for her offspring, her aloneness and her hunger, her instincts, and her survival skills, and we were taken into her experience. Our attention was captured by her, and we weren't distracted by the fact that it was 34 degrees Celsius, and 3 hours passed as we watched her every breath and every movement, and our hunger faded out of view, and we were awake to the moment we were in, without the intrusion of a past or a future or the need for lunch or a reprieve from the heat. Like the Buddha, we all have moments of being lit from deep within when we know ourselves to be utterly awake. In the wisdom tradition of Jesus, we're given that story about being utterly awake. It's a story populated by 3 of his closest friends. In each case that the story is told, it has both a setting that is literal and metaphorical darkness. The story is set after dinner when darkness had come. It was in the midst of the darkness of the political realities that would violently end his life. It was in the deeply human experience of the dark night of the soul. This story of Jesus in a garden surrounded by the wisdom of ancient olive trees, among trees that had stood for hundreds and hundreds of years, he sought the strength to meet his moment. And he took his nearest and dearest with him, asking only one thing of them: stay awake. When this story was written, more than 3 decades after his death, in 3 distinct ways to 3 different communities struggling with their own unique darkness, can we hear this story and know that it isn't history? It's a trans-historical spiritual teaching that poses a question to each of the characters in that story that it poses to us. It's a question for every spiritual being in a human experience. Can we wake up and stay awake? Can we be fully alive to what is? Can we be awake to the moment we're in? Can we be one with what is? Can we be not separate and apart, not walled in or walled off, not somewhere else, not asleep, but utterly conscious to the present moment with every fiber of our being? Can we stay with the pain? Can we stay with the beauty? Can we stay awake to our purpose, which is not some grandiose thing? It is simply to be the creature that is conscious, awake, alive, here and now. Jesus of Nazareth and Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, and so many of our great spiritual teachers are guides for living as fully awake human beings. Those who know the body must sleep, but the heart must stay awake. Knowing that to be most truly alive is to be awake to the joy and the pain of what is. The success of exploitation, of oppression, of inequity, of injustice, the success of those things depends on keeping one's citizenry asleep. It depends on keeping human beings distracted and fragmented and numb. It depends on keeping humans from being awake, from being conscious, from waking into the solidarity of knowing we're not separate from one another, or from other creatures, or from life itself. What's most dangerous for any empire, any regime, any system of control is human beings who are fully awake, fully alive. perhaps an experience of being awake, led Howard Thurman to the insight he expressed this way. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself, what makes you come alive? And go do that. Because that's what the world needs. People who have come alive. To live fully is to waken and be with. To give our undivided attention, to bear joyful and painful witness, which will inoculate us against apathy and ignorance and indifference. And none of us can stay awake all the time. Maybe that's why we need spiritual community. We need companions to wake us to the opportunity to give our attention to beauty, to joy, to wonder, to love, to grief, to kindness, to struggle. To share the shifts, to take turns holding the sadness and gladness of being fully alive. Because in the end, these things matter most. How well did we love? How fully did we live? How deeply did we let go? In the end, did we stay with and stay awake? Did we know the exquisite joy and pain of being awake, of being with, of melting into times of timelessness, of surrendering our senses and our consciousness into the moment that is now and will never be again? We hold these three questions with one another. In this space we give ourselves now, this space to be silent, this space to be community, where we nudge one another into wakefulness, into being one with the community of life. As a community, we pray together as one of the ways we seek to keep one another awake, to awaken one another for our shift, to nudge one another into the kind of consciousness from which we seek to live. And so I invite us to pray these intentions with one another. As we awaken to this day, some are stirring to consciousness with hope and gratitude. Others wake to fear or sadness. The dawn of this new day brings many realities to light for each of us. We seek to the joys and sorrows we carry, to the world as it is and as it could be, to the rest and restlessness of the night. May we open to one another and to the depth of time as we create this circle together and are held by love. May it be so in so many ways. As we gather, it's a time to say thank you to one another for the things we each do to create this community, for the ways we give of our time, of our talent, of our energies, our insights, our life experience, our stories, our wisdom, and also for the ways that we support this community with our means. Thank you for the many ways you each give to create SSUC in this place, in Edmonton, and in Saskatoon. I want to remind us that there are many ways to give of our financial means by donating cash or checks to the box you find at the back, or donating online, or signing up for pre-authorized remittances, or purchasing grocery cards in the foyer as a way of supporting our life and work together. Each Sunday as we gather, it's an opportunity to hear a bit about our mission and our work, an opportunity to think about the way we steward our gifts and our time. Among the vision keepers of being a caring community is our congregational care team, and Janelle's going to come and share a word with us just now from the congregational care team.
Good morning. This morning, like all our Sunday mornings here, we want to thank those of you who sign up to offer that firm handshake and warm words of welcome to all who come through our front doors for spiritual gatherings. Our welcome table is a busy spot in our foyer at times, and it is always appreciated when others step in to lend a hand so that we can ensure contact with our visitors and newcomers. The success of our process to welcoming and keeping in touch with newcomers was strongly validated by some 25 participants at last April's newcomer lunch. It was a treat to hear their stories, how they came to be with us on that particular Sunday, and a bit about themselves. The next Newcomers Luncheon will be held Sunday, October 28th, following the spiritual gathering. The scope of congregational care is far and wide, and Sunday mornings are but a fraction of the interaction, because care and concern, support at times of personal loss, thoughtfulness, comfort food, blankets, phone calls, greeting cards are all needed and welcomed. And the summer months do not decrease that need for care and concern. Apparently, the human condition does not go on vacation. The work of the committee is highly subsidized by the efforts of our many ad hoc members who send the cards, do some of the visits, make up the schedules, post our notices in Morning Messenger, decorate for newcomers' lunches, assist with the memorials, make the blankets, work as greeters at the welcome table, and contribute food to the Comfort Food freezer. Really, each one of us is a part of congregational care. Every time you say hello to that new face sitting next to you, extend a hand in friendship, start a conversation in the coffee line, or reach out to connect with someone you haven't seen in a while, you are caring.
As we take our leave of one another in this time, it's a moment to ask ourselves, what is it that helps wake us to life? And once wakened, how then shall we live?